Welcome back to another episode of the Chill Film Discussion, episode 48, I believe. And today we're going to discuss a pretty recent film um, called The Batman, which I think was released like a month ago. The newest adaptation of The Batman, and there's like a ton of previous adaptations, but this one in particular focuses on the Riddler as the main villain. He is the one of the major antagonists, if not the main antagonist of this film. And essentially, it's kind of like the film. The film is it's 3 hours long, which is pretty long to say, and I think it can be shortened. I think there were parts where definitely, like at least personally for me, I didn't feel like it overextended itself too much. Like I wasn't like tired by the end. Like I was still like, oh, this is cool. Like I could still keep watching. But understandably, it is 3 hours, and of course, with every 3 hour film, you could probably shorten it and you know um, significantly without impacting the movie too badly. And yeah, there were some scenes, yeah, in the first half of the film that could probably be reduced down to, or even just removed in general, because essentially the whole part of this film is Batman following the Riddler as Riddler is leaving clues and then trying to figure out what his motive is and trying to figure out who his next target is because he's been killing off people who the Riddler deems as corrupt. He's trying to basically put his own sense of justice into things, and that's sort of like the premise of his entire film. The acting of this film was superb. I think Robert Pattinson does a great job as the Batman. Kind of interesting his portrayal of Bruce Wayne, because Bruce Wayne being seen as like this outgoing playboy character, whereas in this film Robert Pattinson kind of like he's very aloof and reclusive. So as Bruce Wayne, it's very interesting to see that like difference because he kind of acts similarly between Batman and Bruce Wayne. But as the Batman, as this aloof, reclusive, brooding character, Robert Pattinson does a great job. And then of course all the other cast does a great job as well. Like I think Riddler does a good job. Catwoman. Oh, Penguin! I gotta shout out Penguin. I loved seeing Colin Farrell as Penguin in this movie. It was every time he was on screen, I loved it. Like he's getting his own miniseries, by the way. Like I don't know if
That's
as a fun
interesting.
fact, yeah, like he's got character. There's some funniness to this man. So like, I thoroughly enjoyed whenever he was on screen. Oh, and then yeah, overall the plot I think flowed pretty well. Like it definitely like there's this whole arc of like Batman transforming. Like there's a character development from when he was introduced as Vengeance and how he ends up as Hope. And I think like him following the Riddler and realizing that like he is actually the one who kind of helps um, lift, I suppose, these actions that Riddler is imposing onto the people,
Yeah.
extreme actions, because they sort of have the same, they want the same similar goals, but the Riddler is just more extreme in his actions, and I think Batman realizes that he's inspiring these actions.
Mhm.
So he kind of like transforms into like, oh, we don't need vengeance in the city, we need hope. He's more directly helping the citizens of Gotham, which is really cool. That's a really nice uh, um, character development and story, and how it ties into the story. So appreciate that a lot. Um, there's one thing we didn't mention during our main discussion that I wanted to point out during the concluding remarks, but we do see the Joker in this film.
We do. You're right. That's
I
true.
almost forgot about the Joker. I mean, we do see the Joker. I mean, he was unnamed or whatever. He was unidentified, but it was
Yeah.
very obvious that he was the Joker. And this is the part where Riddler has already been apprehended. He's in
Yeah.
Arkham, and now he's talking with Joker because apparently they put the two biggest like main villains right next to each other conveniently, and within earshot, and they could talk to each other because apparently that's like a great idea. Anyway, whatever. Um, yeah, so he is in this film. He just kind of makes a cameo.
Yeah.
And then, but there is actually a deleted scene. I don't know if you've
Is
seen
there?
the deleted scene. There's a deleted
Not
scene.
yet. I haven't.
There is a deleted scene from this movie where Joker and Batman are conversing, and the context of the scene is that Batman is approaching Joker within Arkham, of course,
Oh,
to get more info on the Riddler, because basically what he's seeing from the Riddler is what, he's like, oh,
Joker would.
Joker could help.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
and
So,
it's actually a very interesting scene. It's basically just a conversation between the two. Um, but anyway, that's a deleted scene. That's kind of like a tidbit. But yeah, it's really nice to at least see in this Batman film that like a new villain in the forefront, at least in
yeah.
modern history. At least okay, since I've been alive. um, I'm sure maybe Riddler has come up in a previous adaptation of Batman in film, but at least in this one, we've seen like Joker. Joker is of course like one of the biggest ones, right?
Yeah.
And we've seen
Certainly.
Bane and like Scarecrow, Ra's al Ghul, of course, in the Christopher Nolan trilogy. But like this is the first time seeing Riddler, at least personally, I've seen
Yeah.
Riddler as the forefront villain. So that was really nice, um, and refreshing. But yeah, overall, despite it being a 3 hour movie, I thoroughly enjoyed this film. I love the acting, I love the story, I love the character development. And yeah, would definitely recommend it. I mean, yeah, it was a good movie. So
No, I probably parroting you, Patrick, that yeah, I do agree that this was a very, very good movie, very well done. And yeah, I love everyone's acting. I think everyone, play their part really, really well in terms of
mhm,
how it was portrayed. I really love Robert Pattinson's portrayal of Batman. It's just the way that even the director kind of sold us this Batman. This guy was terrifying. He's trying to exact his justice and vengeance of the night. I love the introduction, and I think that's what sold me for most of the movie. Right, this guy is very feared among the criminals, and it made sense. Right, and it's just I think it kind of embodies who Batman is. Right, this is
yeah,
someone who's there, who's dark, who's mysterious, and it is very very hostile to the criminal element of the city. And
yeah,
I just love that portrayal. I think it's very different from how it's really portrayed in the previous movies. I mean, previous movies he was still brooding and dark, right? But
yeah,
here he really is kind of, I think, they brought him to a very kind of gritty level, right? He's there to fight, and I really feel that fear that other criminal elements have, especially during that introduction. I think it really is it sold me well on that. Um, I think the reveal of who the villain was, the Riddler, as you said, very unique villain, and it's just I think this whole whodunit story, right, trying to find out this villain, was well crafted, right, and usually I love the clues that they're going on. I'm about to see like where how what's next, how do we prevent the next killing to happen, or trying to find out who this villain was. I love this whodunit adventure series, kind of like a almost like an escape game, right? You're trying to find these clues and piece it together, right, to
yeah.
see the next clue.
Very,
And sometimes
very, very twisted escape game, but yeah, yeah,
yeah, but some of these clues are a bit um outlandish. I think the most outlandish clue was the mistaking of the URL, right? Just that whole like Spanish, like oh
mhm,
that whole thing was just at that point I was just like. I didn't like that clue, but most of the other clues, most of the way that how they crafted the story, I
mhm.
pretty much enjoyed it. I was very engaged to see what happens next.
Yes, yes,
Um,
for sure. Yeah, the first
yeah,
half of the film was for
yeah,
sure very like yeah, I agree with
yeah,
that.
very, very, very engaging. And then, for me, the movie did actually go a bit. I think I felt like the movie was a bit too long, right? At least the last 20-30 minutes, right? I feel like once we capture the villain, we save the day, but then there's this whole 20-30 minutes that's tacked on at the end, right? To save the city from the sea walls. This big visual spectacle of the city being flooded, right, and whatnot. They
Hmm.
had to fight the other the henchmen, right, from assassinating the new mayor.
Hmm.
There was a lot going on. For me, it did feel a bit extra, right, just to attack that story on. We did talk about how maybe to solve this kind of feeling, this additional portion of the film,
Hmm.
was that to cut a bit of the whodunit portion, just so the film could be a little bit more. I don't want to say cohesive, just say it feel be a little shorter, so we're not tired by the time we get to that last 20-30, because it does feel extra, and I kind of bring up the point that it feels like the first portion is kind of the format is totally like in a TV show, right? We have all these clues that we're trying to go, we're trying to find, we have red herrings that we're following, right?
Hmm.
When one herring's not it, we go to another one. So I think that the audience, at least myself, I'm a bit exhausted and finally relieved at the end we get the bad guy, but now there's a bit extra tacked on. So I think it could have been maybe a little worked a bit in the beginning to have it so it's all kind of combined, so we're not too tired by the time we have to get to the end. But I do realize at the end that 20-30 minutes is kind of where Batman's growth is. But just at the time, I am a bit tired at that point. Just say, oh yeah, this movie, we're watching this whole ton done it, and I wanted to see, yeah, Batman save the day.
Hmm.
But ironically, he doesn't really. He kind of fails in that, right? Because Seawall blows open. A lot of people are killed at that point, but he becomes again a symbol of hope for the city to rebuild at that point, right? So the city is
Hmm.
fall, and it shows that there are stakes, right? And that's
Hmm.
I think an important portion of it, right? Batman fails, but he can rise up again to help the city become better.
Yep.
Um, so this do appreciate that portion, but most of all, I think there's some elements here and there within the film maybe that didn't work, but most of all, loved how it went, loved the portrayal. Thought it did pretty good. So
For sure, yeah. And there was a lot of scenes. There were a couple of scenes that were really like I really love some of this the cinematography of some of the scenes. Very well done.
very visually, yeah,
Very visual, really appealing.
very nice and
Yeah,
aesthetically pleasing. I agree.
yeah.
I agree.
Cool. Well, let's do ratings. Let's see. For me, I guess movie a 9.
A 9.
A 9. I know it's long. It's 3 hours, but I still enjoyed it. I still, at the end, I wasn't tired, despite it being 3 hours. And it's one of the few 3 hour movies that I've seen where I was like, huh, it didn't feel really like 3 hours to me. I mean, to be fair, it still like it wasn't like as if like oh it was like it came and gone, right? It definitely like made a mark in the amount of time
Yeah.
spent. But for a 3 hour movie, it felt like 2 hours, 2.5 hours for me.
Mm,
Like it didn't feel I wasn't tired by the end.
I see.
So that being said, I give it a 9. I mean, there are a little bit of scenes. Yeah, like it could be shorter. I agree with that, but I really enjoy this film, and I'm looking forward to sequels because I think there will be sequels.
Yeah,
Actually, no, there should be sequels. Yeah,
this should be there. I think they're thinking about it, and I would be excited for some sequels as well to see how they build upon this character.
yeah. The new villains, the next
Along the way.
villains. Who's the next villains?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and hopefully it'll be new, right? New villains, not the ones that we've seen already. Or
yeah.
Joe. I mean, obviously we want to see the Joker's portrayal because he's iconic, but
Mm,
always want to see someone new as well. How they put that together. Um,
yeah.
but all right, and I'm guessing obviously the 9 you definitely recommend it.
Recommend it. Yes, I highly recommend it. All
Great.
right.
Uh, for myself, I give it a 7.5. Um,
Okay.
I think I think for me, what really kind of brought down was just the timing, right? Just like
Mm,
that whole 23rd. I mean, I just remember watching even now. I mean, after we talked about it, I just think it could have been handled a bit more concisely.
mm-hmm.
Um, in that regard, and I really wish that they did that, just because I really do feel like that last 23rd minutes just a bit felt a lot, just a bit extra in terms of like how they pushed it after nabbing the Riddler. Maybe made it shorter, but we've talked about how my thoughts like where they maybe could have maybe shorten it a bit
Mm-hmm.
to fit that extra 20-30 minutes of the end. But again, I do love the portrayal. I love this, the way that they went about with this character, and really like the story, like at least 75% of the story, right, of how it goes. And yeah, some of the clues and writings, as I said, probably would have been, you know, maybe a bit tighter, but overall, a very good film. I would recommend it, but I always say that I think while Batman's portrayal here was great, I think I just say yeah, it's a bit of a longer movie, and to just be uh, cognizant of that when people are watching, like yeah, it's a bit time of I would say have that caveat. It's a bit of a time investment to
Mm,
watch this movie.
yeah.
It's there's a lot going on, but I would recommend this movie. And as you said, I also probably would be looking forward to any sequels that this movie will have. At least starring Robert Pattinson, right? Because they probably reboot Batman to another one. Is this movie with the same DC universe that we've seen? Like, it's supposed to be like a reboot, like with Ben Affleck and Henry Cavill, or is that separate from that um series? Because I know, like, we
Yeah,
talked
yeah,
about like
no.
the Joker, right, with Joaquin Phoenix, right?
Yeah,
That's
that
definitely
one's that
separate,
was on the
right?
side. Yeah.
Is this also separate, or is this part of that
Um,
same?
it's supposed to, according to Wikipedia, it's intended to launch a Batman shared universe. Um, so I don't know if it's going to be the same as like the Justice League because I don't because that one Justice League was like I don't know if that's going to be continued because that was part of like Zack Snyder's
Yeah,
um project like idea like the Snyderverse and all that.
yeah.
Um, so as of now, I think it's just intended to relaunch or launch the like a Batman universe.
So separate of that.
But
Okay,
so I think it's separate, but um,
okay.
maybe in the future they could.
Yeah.
tied
I
into.
mean, I guess it would make sense, right? Because if Superman was here, why couldn't he save the Gotham, right?
Superman's got busy, more important things to do. You know.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
just kidding. I don't know. I'm sure. I'm
uh,
sure. Yeah.
if they ever do, they probably hopefully have a good reason,
Right.
right? But
Right.
yeah, it would make sense if this is its own standalone thing. So okay,
Yep.
yeah,
Cool. Well, that concludes our ratings, our stream. Hope you guys enjoy it if you watch it whenever you watch it. Um,
yeah,
and then yeah, that's it for us. Yep.
yeah.
Have a good
Okay,
one. Peace. Ciao.
bye.
Cheers. However many ways I can say bye.